Hey everybody, looks like we're just at the top of the hour. So I know we've got about a quarter of the people signed up in right now. I'm sure more will be jumping in. So we'll go ahead and get started and let them trickle in as they will. Appreciate everybody joining me. We are going to be talking today. We actually have Sol-Ark here as well. So it's going to be me, Troy Daniel, the technical trainer here at SimpliPhi Power, as well as Tom Brennan, the CEO of Sol-Ark. So Tom will be talking about Sol-Ark, and I'll be talking about our new battery. And we're going to be talking about integration and a variety of other things. So just kind of some housekeeping stuff. If you have questions throughout the presentation, there's actually a Q&A tab at the top. You can type in questions anytime through there. We're not going to have a ton of time for questions at the end, but we'll try to get through as many as we can. And if we miss any of your questions, we're happy to jump through those questions offline as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start with a little company history of SimpliPhi Power. And really kind of looking at what we do best here. So SimpliPhi Power, for those that might not be aware, we manufacture safe lithium iron phosphate batteries. So safe is they're non-toxic, non-hazardous, cobalt-free chemistry, which takes away the risk of thermal runaway and fire. We're UL certified and UN DOT certified as well. So we're always trying to stick to the highest standards as far as safety and even standards that you might need for installation. Proven technology over a decade of growth and experience, developed in over 40, or deployed in over 40 countries, over 100 megawatt hours installed worldwide, and even tested and validated by the U.S. Marine Corps and Army. As far as simple technology, we try to keep everything as simple as possible. We want the installer, the homeowner, even the distributors. We want everybody to have an easy time when it comes to sizing our batteries, installing our batteries, and general use of our batteries, looking to integrate with really any generation source that we can find, maximizing resiliency and energy security, and trying to create savings. Whether that's through just general savings on utility bills or using more advanced functions like TOU and peak load shaving. We do that through a variety of various solutions, whether it's just from our battery modules all the way to our integrated systems. So again, we manufacture these batteries with lithium iron phosphate chemistry. Unlike cobalt-based chemistries, there's a huge safety factor here. So no chance of thermal runaway and fire, as I mentioned. So these batteries might be going in somebody's home. This is a huge advantage that we see to really drive safety when it comes to these batteries. And just for sake of, we use a cylindrical form factor. And the reason I mention that is when we put these two things together, combined with our manufacturing process that we've refined through the years, we get the most efficient, long-lasting, and safest battery that we can. Just kind of see, global reach-wise, these are some of the countries that we actually have distribution in, as well as countries that we reach as far as products deployed. This is always expanding. We have a huge network of distribution partners and installers all around the world. So we're always looking to expand into new territories, but can mostly facilitate batteries, so I would say all around the world. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Tom, and Tom's going to give us a little brief overview of Sol-Ark. So Tom, I pass you the controls.
Thank you, Troy. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. So Sol-Ark, we've been in business over 7 years. We've grown about 200% year over year for 6 of those years, and won awards both international and national for the past 3 years. Maybe some of you have talked to some of our customer-facing team. So we have several people in business development, more than that. Then also we have Dylan, the engineering support manager, and our team keeps growing in the engineering side by quite a few people every month. And then myself and Bhavna that try and steer the ship. I think it's going to the next slide, but it's not going. Can you advance the slide for me, Troy?
Yep. Go ahead and actually try again one more time. I think it was my fault there. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, now it's going. All right, thank you.
Awesome.
As our systems have grown, you know, now we have the 8K and the 12K with 10-year warranties that we've done highly accelerated life testing 3 times to prove that it'll last well beyond that warranty period. We have a lot of installer financing options now. You know, Sunlight Financial, LoanPal, Inium, SunGauge, Mosaic, and Dividend to help finance the systems. We help you manage your installed fleet. We also check errors on a regular basis or alerts to try and prevent that. We have plenty of stock available as we keep shipping systems growing almost 20% every month. And we really want this to be an easy install as possible with the lowest cost of goods. And when we have our much larger facility next year, we're also going to move assembly here as well to our Texas site. With that,
all right,
let you.
thank you, Tom. Oh, there we go. All right, let me take the controls back here. All right, so the majority of what I'm going to be talking about today is related to our new AmpliPHI battery. So the AmpliPHI battery, and we'll talk logistics about when it's coming out exactly as far as availability later on. But the AmpliPHI battery is not replacing our standard products, but it is an addition to our product line. And the biggest change, and we'll really talk through all of this, but is that this battery has closed loop communication. So let's just talk general specifications of the AmpliPHI battery. As far as capacity and voltage, amp hour rating, same thing as the 3.8, the standard model. So it is 51.2 volt DC nominal. Amp hour capacity rated at C/2 is 75 amp hours. So that comes out to 3.8 kilowatt hours of total energy storage. Again, these are very similar to the standard battery in the sense that they are building blocks. So designed to be scalable and expandable to fit really any energy or power need that you might have. They're UL 1973 certified. One big difference here from our standard batteries, if you're familiar with our spec sheets, maybe you peeked around there with our standard 3.8 model. This one actually has a max discharge at 10 minutes of 100 amps DC. That is opposed to the standard battery that has 60 amps DC. And again, that's per battery. So every time you add a battery, you're adding more of that max discharge at 10 minutes. Also comes with a 100 amp breaker to ensure that you can take full advantage of that max discharge. Max continuous charge and discharge is the same, 37.5 amps DC, the same as our standard battery. Temperature range, 32 degrees to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That's charging temperature. We're going to be talking a little bit about the differences here when it comes to charging temperature or this temperature range related to the new BMS in this battery and the protections built in. Something to consider here, currently limited to 30 battery modules when you are scaling. And that is just due to the interconnecting comm cable. So 40 meters, 131 feet, and that's from battery to inverter. So that's, you know, we're looking at ensuring that we don't have too many batteries in line, and it's really related to the interconnecting cables. So currently 30 batteries of these 3.8 is the max when it comes to putting these batteries in parallel. Dimensions and weight, same dimensions actually as the standard 3.8. It is a slightly heavier case, 86 pounds. Reason for that being, it's in a really nice brand new metal enclosure. So you're only gaining, you know, I think maybe less than 10 pounds, but it is a much stronger metal enclosure. So it definitely has a lot of benefit there. And I think the weight's not much when it comes to what it's added on. As far as wall brackets, and I think I've got a slide talking about this later, but wall brackets, because it's the same dimension and close to the same weight, we can use the same wall brackets that we've always had. And same with the same existing cabinets and energy storage solutions that this battery will also fit into. Okay, so benefits and functions of the battery. As I mentioned, biggest change, closed loop communication with this inverter. Meaning that, meaning that we can, this BMS, the battery management system, actually has the ability to communicate with inverters. We'll kind of talk a little bit about what that means in terms of function, whether it's function now or future functions to come. It also does not require external cards. So some of these batteries that do have closed loop communication, you'll see do require, you know, certain cards or equipment for different inverters. So you need to swap those out. Currently, it's advanced integration with the Sol-Ark inverter. So that's what the closed loop communication is built for, to be connected to Sol-Ark. It can auto-populate set points. And these come directly from the BMS. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But again, no cards required or any sort of, hey, this is a Sol-Ark, and this is the card that I need to use. The BMS is actually telling the Sol-Ark the settings it wants directly from the battery management system. Smaller battery bank to inverter capabilities. This is really what I'm talking about here is flexible sizing. So the ability to have a slightly smaller battery bank as opposed to our sizing guidelines before, C/2, basically, you know, double kilowatt hour capacity to kilowatt capacity for inverter. We actually have the ability now to ensure no over discharge when connected to the Sol-Ark through closed loop communication, so you can have a smaller battery bank. And really high level accurate readings. So this is definitely going to be a huge benefit when it comes to customers who are looking for, you know, a lot of customers are looking for that high level state of charge reading, voltage reading from the batteries, and even charge and discharge data. So this battery will be reporting directly to the Sol-Ark through that closed loop communication, and we'll have some really high level accurate state of charge voltage and overall charge and discharge data. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the protection specifications built into this battery. And again, this is related to the BMS and its closed loop communication. So over voltage protection at 60 volts DC, similar to what we would set the inverter actually for. And this is both analog and digital to prevent this. And that's as far as analog and digital related to the battery management system. Overcharge and discharge protection, 37.5 amps DC per battery. Temperature. Now, this is something that we've had a lot of questions around in the past. And, you know, does the BMS connect or disconnect when temperature is too low or too high to prevent, you know, maybe somebody has a cabin or a situation where they're not sure if it's actually ever going to hit that low temperature, but they're nervous that they might damage the battery. Well, this battery management system into the AmpliPHI battery has the ability to open circuit when that temperature limit is reached. So if it hits that low temperature, this battery will prevent the charge from happening. Automatic charging set points is a great thing when it comes to installation. As I mentioned, there's no card requirements or any sort of external devices. The BMS will tell the Sol-Ark exactly what set points it wants. There is a few set points that are not auto-populated, and we'll go through those. But for the most part, the majority of the set points are auto-populated from the BMS when the battery is hooked up to that Sol-Ark.
Troy, can I answer a few of the can I answer a few of the questions that have come up over the chat?
Sure. Let's see. Is it, okay. Yeah, I see a few that might jump in on.
So how many batteries can be paralleled? I think you answered that. That was up to 30. What is
Correct.
the battery to kilowatt hour ratio with Sol-Ark inverters? That is entirely up to you, your customer. You can have as little as 1, all the way up to any amount, because the battery will communicate to the Sol-Ark what the battery size is. You don't have to program it. You don't have to program the charge set points, and this dynamic maximum amp charging and discharging will control the Sol-Ark. So, you don't have to worry about if the temperature gets too low. It's just going to tell it, hey, don't charge me, and do those types of things. So the temp limits are controlled by the BMS of the AmpliPHI battery.
Awesome. Yeah. Those are great questions. So we'll try to keep going, and when some questions pop up, we can always take a break and jump through them, just for time's sake. Okay, but yeah, so to Tom's point, so those questions kind of all related to each other. Again, the BMS is actually reporting directly and communicating directly with the Sol-Ark. So these functions are kind of intermittent between the two of them. So again, the BMS will open circuits to prevent damage when conditions outside of normal operations are reached. So similar to our standard battery, but it does a lot more functions, and definitely when that closed loop communication is, like having a smaller battery bank, having one battery or a Sol-Ark, it does communicate and allow it to ensure that does not happen, the damage that we might incur from an undersized battery bank. Okay, what's included with the AmpliPHI battery? So, if you're buying our standard batteries, you kind of know the drill as far as what's included, pretty standard. But this one, because of the closed loop communications, we have a few extra parts that we want to include, make everyone's life a lot easier than searching around for these components. Dust caps. We're going to talk a little bit more. This will make a little bit more sense in the next slide. But there are RJ45 ports on the battery, and those dust caps go with that. Battery to battery Cat5 cables, 4 feet. This is included with the battery. So what's not included is the Cat5 cable going to the inverter itself. And that's due to, unique sizing requirements that you might have. One size does not fit all in that case. But the battery to battery Cat5 cables are included. Terminators, again, for those RJ45, those are included, and it does come in that new metal case. Okay, so we're going to do a little talk about wiring and installation. We will keep it kind of brief, but I do want to talk a little bit through what this looks like as far as how to hook these batteries up. So you'll see here, and we're going to look at this picture twice, actually. We're going to look at it now, and then we're going to talk about it, and then we'll look at it again, and hopefully that'll make sense for everybody. So you can see there's 3 RJ45 ports here, and we have Cat5 cable running in this picture. And really what we need to consider is there's 2 ports that are closer to each other and 1 port that's a little farther away. The 2 that are closer to each other are for battery-to-battery connection. And the one that is a little farther away there, if you're following my mouse right here, that one is to the inverter. So let's talk a little bit about how to wire and what those ports mean. So you can see some pictures here on the left. The picture on the top is actually the connections being done on the battery, and the picture at the bottom is actually being connected directly to the Sol-Ark from the battery bank. So for the 3 RJ45 ports, what I mentioned, 2 for the battery chain connections in series. Again, this is Cat5 in series, not the actual battery cables in series. Those are in parallel. 1 for inverter connection as well. So what are the dust caps for? I mentioned that those come with the battery. Those are for the unused inverter port. So when you only need 1 cable going from inverter or from battery to inverter. So the other ones we actually just put the dust caps in to prevent any sort of dust buildup or anything getting in that port when it's not being used. Those ones do not require a terminator. They just need the dust cap. The terminators now that are included are for the unused battery-to-battery chain connection. So let's kind of go through an example of this, and then we'll go back to that picture so we can see exactly how this works. So the assumption being, here's our first battery, and that's the farthest away from the inverter in the chain. We would have, as kind of pictured here, actually this one's not for the first battery. We would have a terminator plug. That is the end of the chain for the battery-to-battery connection. We would have a cable going to the next battery, and then a dust cap because we're not connecting the inverter at that point. Then every battery within the chain would have a cable coming into it, into the top. If we were looking here at this picture with a cable coming out of it, and then a dust cap, because again, we're not using that inverter output except for the very last battery. So the last battery, this is closest to inverter, will have a cable coming in from the previous battery, a terminator to end that battery-to-battery chain, and then a cable actually coming out. And this one would be related to the picture. Obviously, the terminator can go in either port when it comes to the chain, as it is, they're interchangeable there. But the last cable would be going out to the inverter. This is where we connect to the Sol-Ark that you see in this last picture. So let's look at this picture again, and I think this will make more sense. So we have our terminator here. This is the farthest battery away from the inverter. We have a cable going from into the next battery, out of that battery into the next battery, out of that battery into the next battery. Then we end that chain with another terminator. These are in the inverter port, so these could all have dust caps and should have dust caps inside of them. And if you're looking at the picture here, this actually corresponds to the real picture on the left. And then this very last inverter port, we would run to the inverter itself. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, now that we've kind of gone through wiring, let's talk a little bit about programming integration with the Sol-Ark itself. Programming is really made easy by the battery management system. As I mentioned, most of the settings are auto-populated. There are some exceptions, and we'll go through that on the next slide. But it allows for ease of installation. And it really helps to mitigate the misprogramming of set points. So maybe just a quick, lapse in hitting a button. This will help mitigate that factor of kind of human error, I guess you might say, or looking for the most up-to-date settings. This battery will auto-populate those for you. And again, the settings come directly from the battery management system. They do not require external cards or equipment, and simply the battery management system has that storage inside of it where it's telling the Sol-Ark what settings it wants. Okay, so I mentioned some are auto-populated, while there are a few that are not. The auto-populated settings, really all the charge settings are auto-populated. Pole can absorb, and really, I think in the Sol-Ark case, it just says absorb. 56 VDC, that's auto-populated, as well as the end current, which is the current that it will end that absorbed phase at. Float, auto-populated, though not always enabled, depending on your setup as far as MPPT versus maybe just using an AC coupled setup or AC to power the battery to the inverter charger. EQ, automatic, 56 VDC and disabled as far as time. BMS, SOC, and the battery capacity. So automatically putting in that battery capacity to have the Sol-Ark read SOC as accurate as possible. And again, they're communicating directly with the battery. So these state of charge readings the customer, the installer are going to get are going to be really high level accuracy. Max A discharge, this is related to how much of the system or how much of the inverting power is able to be discharged from the battery. So that's a good protection mode there that actually the battery will tell the inverter, hey, I only have one battery in my system or two batteries. The BMS will say only discharge 37.5 amps per battery. So it's a really cool function. Again, it has a lot to do with protection and the ability to have flexible sizing. Temperature compensation is all taken care of as well. I believe it's just disabled, the Tempco, but that is automatically done as well. Now, non-populated settings, low battery cutout is not populated automatically. That does not matter though, because it is based on state of charge. So the SoC will be accurately reading to the Sol-Ark, so it will know when it's at 0% state of charge, and we can adjust if you want it a little bit higher for that low battery cutout. Generator and grid charge functions, not auto-populated, and the BMS lithium battery type just needs to be selected for these to auto-populate. I'm sure there's a lot more settings that are not auto-populated, but these are kind of the main ones that are related to the batteries that we wanted to talk about. Okay, and I wanted to talk a little bit about, what are the options for Sol-Ark SimpliPhi Power integration when it comes to the AmpliPHI battery and using the Sol-Ark inverter. So we could go with the Sol-Ark 12K access with the AmpliPHI battery. So those familiar are access being the all-in-one system, outdoor NEMA 3R rated enclosure. So batteries and the Sol-Ark 12K are built into it, shipped direct to customers. That is an option where you can get all of that built out with our new AmpliPHI battery. You could go with the AmpliPHI battery with the Sol-Ark inverter, just as an indoor system. So you're putting all the parts and pieces together yourself. You decide how many Sol-Arks, how many batteries. And this is really good if you're doing, big jobs or you need to customize from the standard products and fit maybe a high energy demand, or maybe you need 3-phase power or other AC requirements. This is a really good option to go with. Or one of my favorite options is using the Boss cabinet. So on the left here is our Boss 6. This is an enclosure that we build out, NEMA 3R rated. So this is to house the batteries. We have a Boss 6, which holds 6 batteries, and a Boss 12 that holds 12 batteries. The AmpliPHI battery can absolutely fit into this enclosure. And you can pair that with the outdoor rated Sol-Ark, which Tom's going to be talking about here on the next coming slide. So you can have a completely outdoor rated system and very customizable using the Boss cabinet with our AmpliPHI battery and the Sol-Ark outdoor rated inverter. Okay, with that, Tom, I'm going to go ahead and pass you the controls here, and Tom's going to talk a little bit more in depth about the Sol-Ark inverters.
Thank you, Troy. Just to mention a couple answers to some of the questions. One of the questions is the communication reliable enough not to over discharge the batteries? Absolutely. That's the goal of having a closed loop communication system. The batteries are controlling almost all the parameters related to the batteries, charging and discharging. And so you don't have to worry about the standard calculation. And I want to add something to that. Yeah. Go ahead.
We warranty for it. So we are saying that it is reliable, and we are warranting for that, saying that the BMS will function in that manner.
The only thing is if the communication cable becomes dislodged and we're not able to communicate, as a failsafe, the Sol-Ark will go out of this battery percentage mode and go into battery voltage mode. And so as a failsafe to keep everything running and working fine. So anyway, and it will say a little exclamation point above the battery and say, hey, your communications, to give you an idea that the communications are not there. So anyway, about the Sol-Ark. So we have the Sol-Ark 8K and the Sol-Ark 12K. Each system supports 120/240 and also 120/208 because we have basically 2 inverters inside every system, and we either program them to 120 degrees out of phase for 208 or 180 degrees out of phase for 240. You don't need an auto transformer. It's very, very efficient. So we also have a no glitch switch. So we transition from on grid to off grid in 4 milliseconds. So we're UPS grade in terms of time. We support all the different types of modes like grid cell, zero in the meter, time of use and peak shaving, and AC coupling, DC coupling. So we can DC couple up to 13 kilowatts, and we can AC couple up to 9.6 kilowatts. So it's, and you can do a combination of both. So we can work with generators. We have a lot of peak power. So that's really one of the key issues, or the key benefits of having the AmpliPHI system, which I love the name. The AmpliPHI battery allows it to surge amps, and also much more power out of a single battery for shortened periods. So we're able to get the full power out of the full continuous power out of the system for brief periods of time. So anyway, very capable system, and I like the closed loop communication. All right. Let me see if it's going to the next slide. Maybe I have to click. Okay, yeah, it did. All right, so as part of our new enclosure that's coming out, it'll be available October 5th. This is a NEMA 4 rated enclosure. So what we did was we took all of the installers' advice. We eliminated the Wi-Fi plug and the PV disconnect from the bottom. So you'll see the bottom is very, very clean. We can use a wiring trough and connect directly to the bottom of the Sol-Ark. We also added larger cutouts at the bottom for larger wire. We stuck those, basically the Wi-Fi and the PV disconnect on the sides. And we cleaned up the front. We made it much more, you'll just see the screen and the on-off button. So on the side here, if we look at the right side, there is easy disconnects to open up the bottom area, and a PVC cover covers all of the high voltage and low voltage connections, but it still allows you access to the DC, the 250 amp DC breakers, and the AC breakers, the load, the gen, and the grid. You'll also see that we changed the logo a little bit. It's now Sol-Ark Limitless Power, and there are various reasons behind that. The size really didn't change that much, but the only thing, so this is a great benefit to the BOSS system, because a lot of installers are wanting to install the inverter outdoors, the battery outdoors. And so with this, you can get a smaller cabinet, either the BOSS 6 and be able to do a lot more, a much smaller size, and install the inverter next to the load panel outside or the meter. So anyway, just adds a lot of flexibility and ease of install to some outdoor installations. Okay, so at the same time, we've been improving a lot of things, both from a software and hardware standpoint. You'll see the GUI changed a little bit. People thought it was a little bit better to have the icons and the power flowing into the bottom section. Thought it was a good idea, made more sense, so we implemented that feature. Also, if the power level is very, very small in and out of the battery, you won't see the arrows go back and forth. So, just making it so that customers don't ask a lot of questions and get excited. Let's see. Let me pause here and see if there's some questions. How many MPPTs? There are 2 MPPTs, 20 amps each. So we can put, we typically put 2 strings per MPPT, and we can size up to 13 kilowatts. To get the full power, how many batteries do you need? To get the full power of 9 kilowatts AC output, so the system can handle 12 kilowatts in from the MPPTs, and that power is split between the DC side of batteries, so it can charge the batteries, and it can put as much as about almost 10 kilowatts into the batteries. At the same time, it can put about 9 kilowatts, to the AC and the loads. So it's a combination of that 12 kilowatts being split between batteries and AC loads and grid. So to get the full power out of the system, I think you're going to need, let's see, I think it's about 5 batteries. Troy, can you better answer that?
Yeah, I believe it is. I was just doing my math here, but 5 batteries, and you would get the full power. Okay.
And then the next question is, does the generator input also charge the batteries in addition to running the AC loads? Absolutely. Our system is built for on-grid as well as total off-grid scenarios. So you can actually, you can AC couple into the generator input port and have a generator on the grid input side for a standby generator, or you can have, for these smaller generators, it's very convenient to use the grid or the gen input port. By the way, this is the older style case in the form of a cake. Anyway, is it possible to use optimizers if the roof has more than 2 angles? Yes, it is possible. However, if you put a single string on one angle of a roof and put the other string on another angle of the roof, even if they're on the same MPPT, that is perfectly fine. How many inverters can be paralleled? Well, it's right here. We can parallel anywhere from 2. So if we're doing 120/240, we can parallel anything from 2 systems to 8 systems. If we're doing 208, we can do 2 systems and do all 3 phases, because we have, again, 2 inverters inside each system. It'll be a little bit unbalanced, but it's within the utility requirements. If you want to do balanced 208, then you need 3, 6, or 9 systems. How many inverters? Can we power and stack 3-phase loads? Absolutely. Okay, so the output is 120 or 180 degrees. That is programmable. It's just a menu item. Let's see, aren't the needed for optimizers needed for, okay, so you don't need optimizers to meet the Rule 21 compliance. Rule 21. I don't think so. No. I
don't think so either. Maybe they were talking about rapid shutdown, possibly.
I think they're talking about rapid shutdown. And for those, we recommend, there's several rapid shutdown solutions from Tygo, AP Systems, Midnight Solar. We've used almost all of them, and they're much more affordable and they're much simpler. They use power line communications, and they're very, very reliable. Will all Sol-Ark inverters after October 5th have the NEMA 4 enclosure? Yes, we're standardizing on this NEMA 4 enclosure for all our 8K and 12K systems. Rapid shutdown, yes, we do have rapid shutdown. You do need to buy the transmitter of your choice, but we have 12-volt power for the rapid shutdown that you just plug in the transmitter in the user wiring area. Okay. Can Sol-Ark be used in a completely off-grid situation? Absolutely. The surge rating is 20, actually it's 25 kilowatts for 100 milliseconds. It's 20 kilowatts for 10 seconds. And it is 9 kilowatts normally. Okay, so we can run up to 3-ton air conditioners. Okay, let's see. Will it only send? Okay, all right. What warranty does the Sol-Ark come with? Standard 10-year warranty. Okay, so let's get back to the enhancements that we've done. Okay, so back to stacking. You only have to program the master now, and it programs all the slaves. You just have to, program the slaves in the slave, which phase and what setting, which Modbus address, and so forth. So it's pretty straightforward. Everything else gets programmed. The Sol-Ark 8K and 12K are approved for IEEE 2030.5 with an external gateway. And we're also on the CEC list and the S-chip list. Okay, because we're paralleling quite a few systems these days, we introduced these giant CTs that can almost go around your wrist. That's for very, very big installations so that we can cancel out the grid or measure the power coming through the grid, you know, grid peak shaving functions and all kinds of things. We ask that you update the software to version 7.0. These have all, I mean, we have really added a lot of new features and capabilities. For example, we added a lot of improvements to our time of use when we're AC coupling. You must use the CTs so that we can measure the power of the whole house. It comes with the CTs. But even if there's just a single system, we need to use the grid zero mode and use these CTs. We added for commercial places as well as homes, we added grid peak shaving in combination with time of use so that we can use the batteries to a certain set point for during canceling out the grid. And then when we go below that, we can continue to use the peak shaving functions. And also you can use it for a generator as well, even on the gen input port, so you don't overload the small generators. People asked us, hey, I don't want to fully charge my batteries, especially if I'm using lithium. You know, lithium batteries don't, you know, I just want to get a boost from my generator at nighttime. I don't want to fully charge the battery. So we added programmable battery percent shutoffs for the generators, and it saves a lot on fuel. In our new systems, we also added a new rapid shutdown button input. So this allows you to have a single button, a normally open button that will shut down not just the PV arrays, but also shut down the AC inverter output. Some fire departments wanted it. We said, okay, no problem, we'll add it. We also increased our pass-through from the grid to the loads. As we keep pushing more power and adding more appliances to the systems, we added this 60 amp pass-through. So now we can put, instead of 12 kilowatts with the 50 amp, we can pass through even more than 14.4 kilowatts. We also include field replaceable relays. That's, you know, let's say there was a wiring mistake and something got damaged. So we're trying to make this as if for whatever reason it gets miswired, that we can field replace the breakers, we can field replace the relays. We really want to make you guys' jobs much easier, but hey, we do know mistakes happen. Let's see. We've also increased the size of the gen input breaker so that we can AC couple up to 9.6 kilowatts. And we also now measure on that breaker. So we can measure how much generator power is coming through, or we can measure how much AC power is coming through. It's just helpful for monitoring. At the end of September, we're going to roll out a greatly improved website for monitoring. And I'll have more details on that later. Also, what we've been working on is we're working on a lot of simplified app notes for, you know, the Sol-Ark is so capable. It has a lot of different modes and flexibility. So we want to make it easier for installers to simply look at, hey, I'm AC coupling, this is my setup. Or I'm wiring in an AmpliPHI battery. These are some of the things that the battery doesn't program that you might need to look at. Parallel ganging, setting up the Wi-Fi. You know, there's lots of questions usually on hooking up generators. So just a couple pages of showing you, hey, these are the settings that you really need to look at. And October will also support Ethernet LAN with our new dongles. That can go inside or outdoors, and then other things that are coming. So with that, I want to go ahead and answer a few more questions here. Will it only send power back to the panel Okay. Actually, there's not too many more questions. Oh, what certification is in Canada? Yes, you can use these in Canada, of course. They're certified for all of North America, including Canada. We do want to, going back to the slides, we want to say that, you know, our engineers, we're here to support you as well as your customers. We're not afraid of them contacting us. We offer 7-day-a-week support here in Texas, and you know, we also proactively check alarms, and you know, so if we see an alarm, we'll either check which email or which phone number, and we'll give them a call, and we'll say, hey, you may have overloaded your system. Here's how you might prevent that, and we try and prevent problems from occurring. Let's see. Anyway, we offer all this, you know, included with the system. So also we do frequent updates on our YouTube channel and our website. So please check that out because we're here for you. Let me see if it takes me to the next slide. Ah, here we are. So we have on our website under the where to buy, you can find our list of distributors and installers that keeps growing. And if you're not on it, please contact us. You know, we want referrals to come to you. So please reach out to us. You can reach out to our sales and sales@solark.com or option 1 on our phone. And you can reach support@sol-ark.com or option 2. So with
Awesome.
that, I think that's my...
Yeah, no, thank you, Tom. And it looks like we have about 13 minutes left, so I just want to go through a little bit about purchasing the new AmpliPHI battery, and then Tom and I will keep going through the questions and see how many we can get done. As far as purchasing this new battery, availability as far as actually receiving batteries would be end of September. FYI, the distributor network, for the most part, are taking pre-orders now. So these batteries will probably fly off the shelf pretty fast from shipping from us to distributor stock, and likely we'll start shipping out right away. So if you're interested, you've got projects you want to use these on, definitely talk to your distribution partner about pre-orders. Levelized cost of energy, I just want to talk about in very general terms here. You know, this was a quick comparison that I did using our levelized cost of energy calculator. The new AmpliPHI battery, while slightly more expensive, and I mean very slightly, still came at 11 cents per kilowatt hour over the lifetime of the battery. Now, I did a competitor, and this competitor is, I'm not going to say the exact name, but somebody very similar as far as chemistry and closed loop communication ability. So we're comparing kind of apples to apples here, closed loop to closed loop, and even kind of form factor and ideas of chemistry similar here. And that competitor came out to about 44 cents per kilowatt hour. So I think the main point I want to make is, you know, why this was a pretty general comparison, and you can always do your own using our levelized cost of energy calculator. We try to always have a very affordable but extremely reliable battery on our standard products, and the AmpliPHI battery is no different. So we are still keeping our costs as low as possible for you to purchase these batteries while still absolutely comparing to any of our competitors here. As far as purchasing the Sol-Ark with the access with Sol-Ark, those will be available as well, same timing, and those are drop shipped through your distribution partner that'll drop ship from us directly to the location you want to do. So those will also be available if you're looking to purchase those. Okay. Looks like we had a lot of questions come through, so I'll try to answer a few of the battery questions, and we'll just try to go through these. Can the new 3.8 for the AmpliPHI battery be mixed with the previous 3.8 batteries? So really, I wouldn't recommend doing it because it's just not going to make a lot of sense. We still have our standard 3.8 product, so we can always add those in. You really, there's not going to be a lot of situations where you're going to want some batteries to have that closed loop communication and others not while in the same system. So it's really going to make sense. If you're mixing, just go with the standard product, but they can be used without the closed loop communication, if that's kind of a point to make. When the BMS opens circuits, will it automatically close when the temperature goes back to normal, or someone has to come manually? So for the temperature, it does have the ability to automatically close. When a temperature reaches a certain threshold, it will open, and then when it goes back up, let's say it's a low end type situation, it will automatically turn back on. Not all faults are automatic as far as the BMS reset, but there are, and it's actually going to be outlined in the manual which ones are automatic. Okay, so great clarification. The 40, I don't think I spoke correctly there. The 40 meter limit within the string of 30 batteries. So there is a 40 meter limit within the string, 30 batteries, but an additional 40 meters between the inverter and the battery is also possible. So the 40 is really just when you're talking about battery-to-battery connections, but you can still do 40 more to the inverter. So you got plenty of room. What is the battery low voltage cutoff, and is it adjustable? So the internal battery low cutoff, I don't know off the top of my head, I believe it's somewhere around 48, but it has a little bit of a delay. As far as adjustability, you can't adjust the internal one, but you can absolutely adjust. So if you're pairing up with the Sol-Ark, you can adjust where your low battery cutoff actually is within the. Are the batteries sunlight resistant? I don't know for sure there. These batteries are not outdoor rated. So if you put them in the boss cabinet, absolutely it's going to be able to withstand any kind of weather like that. Good point to make also. These, I'm guessing this is, we got a comment here from one of our other team members. I mean, I'm going to assume that she's talking about the ports, the RJ45 ports, that will likely be labeled by the time these are shipped for a little bit more clarity on which port is which. Question about connecting to other inverters. For now, it's just the Sol-Ark inverter. You know, we went with them. We really like working with them. We love their support that they provide for the customers. Their inverter has a ton of capabilities that we really look for in an inverter. So currently, it's just the Sol-Ark. There will be others to come, though, and we will add on more communication protocol. No. Okay, so we answered that one regarding reliability of the BMS to prevent that over discharge. Okay, I'm a homeowner and really excited about the Sol-Ark with the ability to add batteries at a later date. Do you sell the Sol-Ark Access cabinets without batteries so that they can be added later? So I'm going to go with the boss cabinet. It's the same thing. It's still, you can add on to a system with the boss cabinet and add batteries. So there's the boss 6.0 or the boss 12, which is 12 batteries can fit in the larger one and 6 batteries can fit in the smaller one. Okay, looks like we answered that one. Tom, I think this one's for you. Does the coupling size increase with the two sizes of units you offer, or are you talking about the max size unit you offer? Does that make sense to you? Or did you already answer that one?
So the 12K supports stacking and paralleling. The 8K does not support stacking. So we can't stack an 8K and a 12K. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, looks like Tom answered all these ones. Okay, let's fly through those. Oh, Tom, another question for you. I'm guessing this is for you. I'll answer as well. Can I purchase an extended warranty? And for our batteries, typically no. It would have to be the only time I think it would ever be allowed is if it's a really unique project. But Tom, I'll let you answer for yours as well.
We are considering it to go beyond 10 years, and maybe something like an additional 5 years. We expect the system to easily last over 20 years, and a lot of the components that might wear out, like fans or the LCD panel or the lightning protection, can be field replaceable, and as well as some of the boards.
Awesome. This question is for inverter compatibility with the AmpliPHI battery. If the inverter does not have the provision, so for instance, the RJ45 connector for the battery, will the inverter still work with these batteries? So currently, again, it's just Sol-Ark that we're connecting to with this as far as using the closed loop communication. When more are added on, we will have the adaptation to whatever the connection is. But it's as we go through and set up closed loop for various systems. Something that we
I think they're asking a little bit differently. I think what they're saying is if I don't have communications, can we still have the inverter and the battery work together? Of course. It's just not going to have the dynamic charging capability, the faster charging and discharging. It's not going to have as accurate state of charge, and you'll have to manually program some of the voltages. So yes, sure. It will work. It's just you have so much more capability when the battery is able to control the inverter, especially if it's outdoors.
And again, we're not getting rid of our standard product. So if you do have a system where you're looking, unless maybe you need that 100 amps for 10 minutes and you need that really high surge capabilities, the standard product would probably make a lot more sense in the systems where you're not using the communication protocol. I think this one's for you, Tom. Are you planning any BOS components to facilitate parallel installations?
Oh, that's a good question. So you really don't need a lot of things. All you really need is to wire the systems together. So there's really not a lot to it. It's really just programming. It's very, very simple to do parallel stacking on our system. So I don't think we need any. You're welcome to reach out to us at support@sol-ark.com if you have any suggestions. We really listen.
Awesome. So this is back to battery, or basically the RJ45 port on the battery, and understanding are there different cabling or anything. The cabling is the same, still Cat5 cable, whether it's the inverter port or the battery port. And how will I understand, the question is, which one is the correct port to use? So again, it will be labeled when it comes out, as well as the installation manual, but they are staggered. So there's two close to each other that are battery to battery, and the farther one away is the inverter. So it's pretty clear when you see the battery, but they will be labeled as well. Winter use in -30 C, do you have a solution? That's pretty low. I would definitely say you might need to look at some sort of heating option, or call us about the hot start solution. We're basically looking at, turning on a heating pad at low temperatures. Are you going to share this presentation with us later? Yes, we are a bit behind on recordings, but this one will be priority and we'll get it out. Okay, I answered that question already. Do I have a side-by-side chart showing the differences and comparisons between the regular 3.8 and the AmpliPHI battery? We do not, but duly noted, and I think that's a great idea and something we could definitely create that could show those differences. Can we use bus bars, and is there a limit? No, if you can find bus bars, you can Definitely, you know, the limit being 30 batteries still, again, when in these chains, but you can use bus bars. And that's terminal bus bars. Can you put less than 6 or 12 batteries in the box cabinet? Absolutely. That's just the max, but you could always use it. Again, as far as asking about the 2 questions about Schneider and Outback, those are to come. So currently it is with Sol-Ark though. Let's see, is there somewhere we can model the systems, platforms you suggest? Tom, you think that one's for you more?
I don't know. I'm not sure. We need more detail. Not sure what that means.
Agreed. Okay. Questions about grounding and concerns there directly on concrete really shouldn't be a problem. You know, the case is very separate from the internal component. So even though it is metal, should not have any concern. Does Sol-Ark support battery to grid cell, Tom?
Yes, it does.
Okay, looks like we're good here. I think the clarification was the modeling they were looking for is TOU modeling, less than even net metering.
Less than net metering.
Like energy pool based. Yeah, I think.
Time of use modeling. Please send me an email. My email is tom@Sol-Ark. I need to dig into that more in terms of time of use modeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I'm going to try to answer, let's see here. One more question since we're out of time here. Can we, are above a set voltage? Okay, so I think the question, I'm not sure if this was the question, but I did want to answer this question. And that's, can we change settings? So let's talk about really quick, think about the max discharge setting. So while it is always going to be 37.5 amps DC as the max continuous discharge and charge, that's the set limit. You can go below it and it will take, and even though the communication protocol will say, hey, you know, 37.5 per battery for the continuous, certain set points you can adjust, but it will never allow you to adjust it outside of the parameter, meaning you could set it lower and they'll take either the lower, but if you try to set it higher, it will default back to that setting that we know is there to protect the battery. Okay, apologies if we didn't get to your question. I think we got through most of them. We are out of time here, but I really wanted to appreciate Tom, thank you, Tom, and appreciate you jumping on. I know you got a tight schedule, so really appreciate having you, and really looking forward to some more inquiries. My email for the training is actually right there, training@SimpliPhiPower.com. Shoot us an email, give us a call, and we're happy to talk further about the AmpliPHI battery.
Thank you all.
Awesome, and thanks again so much, Tom.
You bet. Bye-bye.